Hey guys, welcome back to another Gon Gang video, and today we've got a special video. So, everyone's obviously seen now, or maybe not seen now, that if you place top 64 a sector or a regional, you will be getting a showcase based on the leader that you are the best at in that top 64. And everyone was questioning whether or not we get the Vader or Luke's. They confirmed we're getting Vader or Luke's. So today's video is for people who are just getting into the game or already in the game and just want to try and get them. We have the Luke and Vader starter decks, and we have three price points for each one. We'll be doing a cheap version, a medium version, and then an all-out version. And the person that's joining me today is one of our new members. It's going to be Rich, and Rich has put these decks together. He's going to break it down. I'm going to ask some questions about them, and then let's get straight into it. So, starting with the first one, Rich, we've got the £25 Vader starter deck. So what were you looking at when you were making these price points? Why we started with 25? Why is 25 our starting point?
So I was looking at a few cards put in. Essentially, I started with the all-out version, um, which we'll get to later. But all these big money cards, and then seeing what you can replace from those. Um, I think with Vader, you do need a couple of big cards, and they do cost a little bit. So mainly the Maul. So he's roughly about a fiver per card at the moment. So I was trying to do about £10 in cards to upgrade, but it just wasn't really possible.
Okay.
And then the other thing that I was pretty surprised about is the Dark Troopers, uh, a few pounds each
Yeah,
still.
I think it's because
So
they're like starter deck exclusive and not too many people picked up the starter deck. So
yeah, I think that. So and then you either have to buy the OP versions, which are still the same price. So I found it pretty difficult to make a decent Vader deck for only a few pounds. So
25 is where we're starting. Very
yeah,
nice.
so and it uses a lot of the base starter deck as well still. So you've still got your Snowtrooper Lieutenant that's in there. Obviously Death Star Stormtrooper. Vader's lightsaber's still in there. I think just a bit thematic, and you can just slap that on any unit and it makes them pretty scary as well.
Yeah, like looking at this list, like for people that haven't played Vader before, obviously his abilities after you play a villainy unit, you can do one damage to base, one damage to a unit. So the deck mostly consists of villainy. There's not too many units that don't have like no villainy aspect. Okay, mercenary gunship and a couple other things. But as well as that, Vader also likes to ramp. So having resupply in there, super laser tech in there, and then you have, for example, merciless contest. You can kill your laser tech, kill something of theirs. If you're going against something like stacking big things, you can play traitorous. So I mean, and then obviously looking at the sideboard as well. You've got your Lauren to heal. You've got Palp's return to bring back your Maul, bring back your Palpatine. It's a very good. The deck by itself was pretty good in set one, so being able to like only upgrade it for only like, I mean, £25 isn't exactly the lowest, but for the power this probably packs, it's pretty good.
I think there is a lot of ways to build them as well. Like I've put the mercenary gunship in as basically a cheap two cost answer to things like A Wing, etc.
Hmm.
Um, but those could easily be TIE fighters, and then that lets you do the TIE fighter turn one, and then also use Vader's ability to ping something. Um, so it's easy to change. I think you could also change from command center to ECL. That would be an easy upgrade to get the ambush.
Hmm.
Um, but I think from having played Vader a little bit, just like that 30 health too much for him because him
Gives
coming
you a
out on
little bit
seven
of
is pretty
breathing
slow.
room.
Yeah, exactly. And then we'd just swap it in the ECL use for timelies, basically.
So, in this low price point Vader, what's the card that stands out to you the most that you've added in from to the starter deck?
I think it's got to be the Maul. He's just you big, come out, kill something, overwhelm. Um, he's going to be, you know, winning the games. But yeah, I think him in the Palp unit, you already get one of those in the starter deck. So I've just added an extra, but they're pretty cheap. But it's definitely got to be the mole.
Okay. I would agree as well. I would think that Mole like is just a huge like unit, especially considering he's only about £3 ish to have a couple of them in your deck, and especially if you ramp, it's pretty good for you. There's no reason why you wouldn't run him, is what I'm saying, at a low price
Yeah,
point.
and I think he comes out at the same time as Vader flips as well, so that's two
Two,
scary
yeah,
units on the same turn.
and you don't even necessarily have to put Vader's lightsaber on Vader. You could just put it on the Maul, so Maul's even bigger.
Yeah, this 10-7 swinging without overwhelm. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, especially if you get to go against a like one health unit, so say if you're against another stormtrooper, you over them for 9. Like it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's crazy. And the thing to note with this deck is the mole's on attack ability, so you can rather than take the damage himself, you can actually put it on Salacious Crumb. So that's sort of the reason Salacious Crumb is in there, as well
True.
as for the healing.
So this is our 25. This is our lowest price point. So let's bump it up to the next tier, which is going to be a medium price point. So Rich, what did you add into your £50 upgrade?
So it's not a lot different. Just one or two cards extra. So just obviously another mole. Um, just he's really good, like we've just said. So why not have another? Um, and then the two more expensive cards, we're starting to put some legendaries in. So there's a Crate Dragon, and then also the Devastator. Um, so I think the Crate Dragon just a great either comeback card or a win more card. Can do either thing. And then the Devastator, just big fat capital ship. Like, what more do you want?
Yeah, like looking at this, you can already tell that like the deck's already been improved via your top end. Again, when we were talking about ramp, if you manage to get your resupplies and your laser techs off and you're managing to get there, get into Crate Dragon and Devastate is no problem. Like it's a lot easier and you have a lot more top end, especially if you go against other control units that are dragging you out. You have answers to them. Same in the sideboard. You also have a relentless in the sideboard now. That wasn't in the original in the first one. So again, another unit to potentially add in if you're getting dragged into that late game. So
Yeah. So one difference in the £25 Relentless, it comes in the starter deck, so it was in the main board, but now, um, like I said, it's in the side, but lets you actually put Relentless, Devastator, and the Crate Dragon in for your top
hmm
end in those grindy games. Three big units to hopefully get that end and push through.
So is there any lower tier units that you doubled up on or tripled up on, or were you just thinking about adding your top end, more top end in for the Vader?
I think it's more Vader's top end. Ideally we want to be ramping, so you skip in 4 resources a lot. Um, with the green, red villainy sort of ramp style, don't think there's too many good cards
hmm
in that mid-range price point. A lot of it is just trying to stall the game out, get to these big mauls, your Palpatines, the reinforcement walker, and especially with Timely or Piet, it's just a game changer with all the healing it can do, and still got a massive stat line as well.
hmm I also noticed that the Sable and Fang fight is in the sideboard now too.
As well, yeah. So with these ones, starting to think more about maybe some meta calls. So like people playing upgrades, the classic deck of Sabine, with Dark Sabers, Fangfire lets you remove that. A lot of people playing Anakin
hmm
or Hand 2 Blue, and they play a lot of lightsabers. So again, can remove those. Um, yeah, just starting to think about the whole game more really.
Yeah, I think it's the deck's just looking at it already visually it's been improved. You know, you have your top end like we just talked about. You're starting to think more about meta calls with the Fang fight. Relentless being in the sideboard again is just it's just easier for you to bring in if you need it because you don't necessarily need it all the time and you feel like pressured to use it because it's your top end. But now having a crate and devastator, it's a lot easier. And like you said, you haven't really changed too much of the start, like the starter deck, and you haven't changed too much of your start and hands. So you still have your Death Star Stormtroopers, you still have Pia, you still have your Ram, still have your Vias, Still have your Dark Troopers, but your top end now is getting a lot better, so you can start pumping out more damage when you get there. I like this for the mid range. So, Rich, let's bump it up to your final tier that you've got for Vader. So, for your
So
final tier is £100 plus.
yeah,
This
so
just break us through it, Rich. What's going on?
this
What's going on?
this is opening the wallet, chucking all your money out. It's basically got it's similar to the £50 deck, to be honest. The only real difference is you'll see the Darth Vader unit, which is our money card.
Yes.
So, um, at the time of recording, he's maybe 30, £40 per card. Um, but if you really want to, I think if you really want a good, strong Vader or even a villainy green deck, you need that Vader card. Um,
Yeah.
he's just too good, I think.
For anyone that doesn't know what Vader does, he is, when played, search your top 10 cards of your deck for any number of villainy units with a combined cost of 3 or less and play each of them for free. And he gains ambush when he's played. So a lot of the time people will play this, drop a Dark Trooper, or play this, play a Chrome, play this, play a Laser Tech even, some things like this. But like Rich said, if you want to play a villainy command deck and you have spare change, Triple Vader is always the best idea to go.
Yeah, he's just too strong, really. And a few things like Veers has been removed from this one, but we could actually bring him back if we wanted. And when you play Vader, you can play the Veers for free, buff the Vader for the ambush, as well as anything else you've got that's alive. That's a really good play. Um, Also here the sideboard changed slightly, just put a Great Dragon in the sideboard as well, so just improving that top end again. Um, and then the low end changes. Really, it's just the Mercenary Gunship changes to Kylie's tie,
Yeah.
just to lose that ability of people paying 4 to take your gunship, which I don't think would be that common, but just in case.
There's also the another thing about Kylo's tie that's really good is if it does get discarded from your hand, you can just play it. So it's giving you another option.
Yeah, and I think we've seen after the recent PQ season, there's a lot of hand control, hand destruction decks. So the Kylie tie is an easy card just to, if you get fourth thrown, chuck that one away and you can just play it anyway.
hmm Overall, again, looking at this list, it's very easy to know what you have to do, right? You're getting your ramp off, you get into the big end, you have your heals from Chrome. If you need more heals, you've got your Lara in your sideboard, you've got unit trade, you've got open fire, you've got force choke, you've got merciless contest, you got OB to clear the board. If they're killing your force units, you put in your Palps return. If you need more sentinels, again, cell block guard can go in. But the main thing with Vader is you're always trying to get to your top end, and as obviously shown by the different price points, the more money that is put into a deck, the better your top end always gets. Because the top end was the expensive part in a lot of the sets. So for anyone that's looking to get into Vader, these are only our suggestions. Each price point, you can obviously do whatever you feel necessary, and that is benefiting you playing at your local scene. But this is what we think will be the best at this moment in time.
Yeah, definitely. I think, for me personally, this is maybe more a competitively skewed Vader list. You could definitely do more theme with like a force traits, fifth brother, seventh sister, Vader of the Inquisitors. That's pretty cool. Get some fallen lightsabers in, but I don't think that is necessarily as strong in a more competitive scenario.
Yeah. So don't forget, we're also making these lists for the upcoming sectors and regionals. So if you were looking to go to them and you just picked up the starter decks and you didn't really have time to, you know, prepare a massive list, these are just some quick, easy upgrades, and it would benefit your list greatly. So overall, Rich, how did you feel putting a list together for Vader? Was it easy? Was it hard? What did you feel like when you put them together?
I think Vader's relatively easy to build for. The maybe only difficult part is thinking about his actual leader action. Because to use it, you kind of want to play below curve, which normally isn't the best thing to do. Um, so I think really you're only going to do it turn one with your one cost, either stormtroopers or Salacious Crumb, and then maybe later on, um, once you get to those high resource turns, and you just you've already played maybe your first Vader unit, and then you go to
Hmm.
8 resources. If you don't have Palp, maybe you can play Maul and then do Vader's ability. But um, yeah, I think his actions maybe not the best, but is useful. Um, the top end, I think, is just a classic villainy green top end, and then with the red of Ruthless Raider, Palpatine, Crate Dragon, um, Overwhelming Barrage. I think you just always have three of those every time you green villain. Um, the bottom end of, well, sorry, your low costs, they're some of those pretty interchangeable. Maybe you don't need the Blacks and Starfighters. Um, the timelies could change. Maybe your open fire can change, but I think it's a good starting point to play it and then see what you want to try, what you want to change.
Yeah, like I said, there's always, like we said, this is what we think you could take quickly to the regions and sectors with quick upgrades in there. But there's always how you want to play, right? The best thing about card games is you can always change your deck on how you want to play and how you want to adapt to everything else. So feel free to do any changes that we haven't said or take things out and add things that we haven't said. It's always up to you. But the main thing is, in the starter decks, there was two leaders, Rich. So the next leader we're going to move on to is Luke Skywalker. So starting off at Luke Skywalker's lowest price point of £25, Rich. Break us down. What are we doing at our low price point? What we adding?
Right. So the first thing I've done with the Luke Star deck is swapping from yellow to green. I think just the green hero is really strong right now. Um, and the big thing here I've done is put ECL as his base. I think the heroic blue and green units has a lot of good ambush synergy in there. Um, so the big cards in this, we do actually have some legendaries straight away with Ayla.
Okay.
Um, so she's a majority of our upgrade price. So she's about £10. So two of those takes her to the £20 immediately, and then sort of everything else is relatively cheap. So should be around the £25 mark for everything. But her 6 damage, and if you can get the coordinate, which is on attack, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to this unit for the attack, which is a really strong ECL target um, to potentially kill something, and she lives and takes no damage.
Yeah, I agreed. So just run us through some key cards here. Obviously, you've just mentioned Ayla being one of the key ones for your ECL. Anything else that sticks out to you when you're putting this list together?
So I think probably some other big cards. General Riken is really strong, especially another ECL target. So he has when played slash on attack, choose a friendly unit. If it has Sentinel, give an experience token to it. Otherwise, it gains Sentinel for this phase. So you're able to ECL him out and give him an experience and Sentinel when you ECL doing the when played and on attack. Um, so you can swing for 6 power and then also be your Sentinel for the whole turn,
Hmm.
which is really strong. And it's the same turn as Luke Skywalker can flip. So he could come out and then shield Riken later on. Um, so I think that's actually really strong. Another good ECL target is Obi-Wan's Aether Sprite. So when played on attack, you may deal 1 damage to this unit and then 2 damage to another space unit. So that's able to swing for 4 damage and then an extra 4 doing the when played and on attack with ECL. So that's
Hmm.
super strong. Um, and then you've got your redemption just right at the end. Lets you, when played, heal up to 8 total damage from any number of units from your base. Deal damage to the unit for how much you heal. Just lets you sort of get to the late game, take a lot of damage, heal it back, and healing's really strong in this game. I think.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, for just a low price point, the starter deck has been it's not only upgraded, it's been completely changed. Like you said, you went from yellow to green, and you've just immediately just became the deck's just become a lot better, right? You've mentioned Ailey, you've mentioned Riken, you've got Redemption. If you need takedown, you've got two, but you also have an additional two with Chewbacca. Then you've got your Jedi lightsabers. You still have your ramp if you need that ramp to get there. You've got triple resupply in there. Just looking at your sideboard as well, you've got General's Blade, so you could potentially like Jedi lightsaber, General's Blade. You have six Sentinels in the sideboard, the Village Protectors and Echo. If you really need it as well, Rivals Fall against just something massive. You might get the odd Chirrut player that plays Rivals Fall Chirrut. Like, there's all kinds. I mean, I don't think there's anything at this price point that you could not have added, right? I think you've hit everything on the head. Like,
I
there's,
think you could probably spend a lot less for the Luke Skywalker. It's a lot easier, I think, than the Vader.
yeah,
So Ayla could be something else. To be honest, I actually almost like struggled making it more expensive um,
I think
at the
villainy
twenty
in
five
general is
pounds.
just a lot more expensive, right? So for hero, you could just get a lot more, a lot more bang for your buck, basically, right? Whereas villainy, there's only a few cards there in villainy that is, like we mentioned, the Vader is super expensive, but is really good. But if you look at like the lowest tier of Luke Skywalker already, it can pack exactly the same punch, and we're spending basically nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I like this list, but let's bump it up a tier, Rich. We're gonna go to £50, Rich. So what did you add to the £50 list?
So what we've done here, we've added another Ayla, and then uh, Chewie's gone and been replaced by a Home One. So another legendary, but a relatively cheap one. But I think that's really strong in this deck. So it has Restore 2, gives other friendly units Restore 1. And when played, you can play a hero unit from your discard pile, and it costs 3 less resources to play. Um, so yeah, not loads really changed here, just those two cards, another icon. And the redemption has moved to the sideboard for when you sort of need it. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
think
did.
your game plan stays the same, really.
I did notice that the Echo Base Defenders are now out, and you've added additional rivals for because the Redemption moved to the sideboard too.
Yeah, and I think sort of similar to the Vader one, we can build this deck lots of different ways. The General's Blades could be Echo Base Defender. Um, I quite like at the moment these sort of mid-rangey decks that have almost two sets of scary upgrades so that they can just throw down even like a Battlefield Marine, give them a
Hmm.
General's Blade or a Jedi Lightsaber, and especially against aggro, they just can't deal with it.
I mean, even something as simple, right, as that R2D2 goes down turn one, doesn't get dealt with Jedi Lightsaber R2, right? Like R2 just becomes a big unit and he just wasn't dealt with. And then if you had General's Blade the R2 as well, and he's even bigger unit, right? So, like you mentioned, people just sometimes don't realize that a small unit can quickly get turned into this big unit that you haven't dealt with.
Yeah, exactly. You spoke about it in the interview with Sam with your R2 in
Oh yeah,
Sabine putting dark sabers on. Like people just don't think you'll ever do that, and then they quickly lose to it.
yeah. So I mean, it doesn't look like a lot's changed, but like you mentioned, the home one brings a big punch, right? All your units are now got that restore one. You're playing something from your discard that costs three or less, so you can potentially do Battlefield Marine, Gamo, Yoda, Restore Dark. I mean, they all help the game in one way or another. I mean, even something as simple as R2 coming out, right? Okay, it might have not been your best hit, but you look at that top card and go, really don't need that. Goes on the bottom of your next card, exactly what you needed. Or if you have Village Protectors in, they're in the discard pile. Bring village protectors back out. Sentinels on the board. It's great.
Yeah, really strong.
So not much changed in the mid-range version of £50. But let's go to the very final one, Rich. We're going to go to £100 plus, Rich. So some people already noticed what's obvious the obvious answer. But Rich, what have you added in the 100 plus version?
It's Luke Skywalker, the unit. He's a, he's making you remortgage your house so you can play this deck. But um, I think I've seen him going for like 40, £50, even more than Vader at the moment.
Yep.
Um, but he's just so strong. So 6/7, restore 3 when played, give an enemy -3/-3 for the phase. If one of your friendly units has defeated this phase, it's -6/-6 instead. So super strong, usually killing something with the when played when he comes out.
And it's just his big body too, right? Like not a lot of things are going to be easily trade into him. You might have to spend your removal on him specifically, which then obviously yes, it's ideal for the person that's removing it, but if you have another Luke in hand, it's just straight in. I did also notice in your sideboard that you've got two vigilance in there, Rich.
Yeah, so another pretty expensive card. I think this just lets you swap straight to almost like a controller deck if you want with playing that. So you can just play lots of sentinels, store the game outloads, heal. You heal with vigilance, heal with Luke, heal with home one. Um, like a different game plan. Um, that could be something else. So you could stick to more of a mid range to, like we mentioned, either echo bases or something else. A few different ways to play this, I think. But just thinking about maybe a control style with here.
Yeah, I mean, even when you're using vigilance, right? You obviously, if you need it, you heal a five, but you don't necessarily have to mill. Because considering Luke Skywalker's giving you a shield, you could also then just throw another shield on with vigilance, and Sutton's got two shields, right? And unless they have actual removal, you're not going to get through two shields pretty quickly. You'll have to spend a lot of and especially if you drop it on a sentinel. So if you did have, so let's say village protectors, let's say it had Jedi lightsaber, wasn't removed, Luke Skywalker gives it a shield. Next turn you then vigilance, and then next thing you know, village protectors has three shields on it. It's
Yeah, and I
it's
don't
hard.
think anything's dealing with that.
Yeah, it's hard to deal with. I mean, yellow can get rid of it very quickly, obviously, waylay and something, but that means they have to hit the waylay, right? But if they don't, they're not getting through it.
Yeah, exactly.
But, I mean, as you've seen in the Vader and Luke, the top end for both of them always is three of the actual unit card and not the leader card, right? So Vader is triple unit Vader, and Luke it's triple Luke unit, right? Again, we're seeing Vigilance and Luke, whereas the other one it was Crate Dragon for Vader. So a lot of these decks, it's your top end that will most likely change. It's very rare that it will be the low end that has a card that's that impactful that it's super expensive. Yes, Vader had Kylo's tie, right? Well, Kylo's tie is not necessarily a unit that you specifically have to get, but like Richard, it's just better than a gunship in case someone does steal it, right? Or if you do get hand disrupted, which happened a lot of PQs, you can still play your Kylo's tie. Whereas Luke, not much changes low end, but again, your top end's completely different. You've got triple Luke now, you've got home one, you've got vigilance because you'll be paying six for it, so it counts as your top end. It's just good. So, what was like we mentioned about Vader, Rich? When you were building Luke, was there any problems that you ran into? What was your mindset thinking on every price point for Luke? Like, what were you thinking about them?
I think basically, again, I started with this big money deck, and then cut from there. And actually, it was easier to get into the cheaper price points with Luke because just essentially removing the three Luke Skywalkers put the deck nearly at the £20 in upgrades. Um, I think I did struggle slightly with which way to go with him. So I think this current deck is maybe a bit of identity crisis if it wants to be mid range or maybe more controlly. But I think the sideboard lets you sort of lean into more one in one way or the other. Um,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like we said with the Vader one, This is what we think would be quick upgrades, obviously to add to your deck. Like obviously, if you were going and you wanted to get one of these showcases in your top 64, and you're like, okay, I just gotta grab the starter deck, and how do I upgrade this? This is just what we think you could throw in pretty quickly, and the deck would be playable. They like Richard. It's not necessarily. It doesn't have a set. This wants to be mid range. This wants to be control. But like you also mentioned, the sideboard deals that for you, right? Like you have units in there that'll help you control. You have units in there that help you be mid range. But at the same time, this is always changeable in however you want to play the game. We just think this is what's the best. And I'm not gonna lie, Rich hit the nail on the head of pretty much every one of these price points.
All me, all me.
It was all Rich. So, any last words, Rich? Are you going to take one of these decks to Liverpool?
I think personally, I don't think so. I think there's gonna be so many Lukes and Vaders. Pretty tough to get that showcase, but respect to everyone who's doing it. At the moment, I am thinking about this Hera double green, but
Hera
do
double
I
green?
do I do I want a showcase? That is the question.
That's interesting. Hera double green is very. I mean, more Spectres next set, so you never know. It might be good.
That Sabine's TIE Fighter is looking spicy.
That's pretty good. So, guys, you've heard it, you've seen it. This is what Rich thinks, and I think that you could upgrade your starter decks with for every price point. You want cheap upgrades, no problem. Mid-range upgrade, no problem. If you like Richard, you want to remortgage your house and buy three Luke Skywalkers, it's there, right? If you like this type of content, guys, like, comment, subscribe, do all of it. If you want to see more starter deck upgrades, let us know. Thank you very much.
Bye.